Welcome to Mindzilla. I'm Jess.
And I'm Luke, and no, I don't know why I agreed to this either.
Each week, we kick things off by judging and advising strangers on Reddit before tumbling headfirst into conspiracies and interdimensional nonsense.
Jess digs for the truth, I mostly sit here questioning my life choices.
Get bonus episodes every week on Patreon with our tinfoil hat tier, just £3 a month, or go higher to unlock secret perk and early access.
You can also buy us a coffee on PayPal. It's not a cry for help, but it is close.
Catch new episodes every Monday on Spotify and YouTube, audio only. Hiya!
Hello. We kick this off straight away with a juicy Am I the Asshole?
Oh, can't wait.
Am I the asshole for getting involved with a married woman who said she was getting divorced and then ruining her life?
Oh.
I, 19 male, met this woman, 38 female,
Oh my God.
at the gym a few months ago. She was super friendly. We started chatting often, and over time it turned into something more. I know the age gap is a lot, and I was definitely unsure at first, but she made me feel seen, surprisingly comfortable.
Mm-hmm. Like a mum would.
Early on, I asked about her situation because I noticed she always avoided talking about her home life. That's when she told me she was married. But she said the marriage was basically over and that they were in the middle of a divorce. She made it seem like it was just a matter of time before everything was finalised. She said they were only still living together for the sake of their kids, male 17 and 15, but weren't really together anymore. I didn't love the situation, but I also didn't want to judge. I took her at her word and we kept seeing each other. From mostly outside of her home, I never pushed to meet her kids or go over. I just figured it was complicated and respected her boundaries. Her husband found out about me. I guess her older son saw messages on her phone and told him. Turns out, they weren't separated at all. No papers had been filed, no lawyers, no nothing. She lied. They were still married in every sense. Now she's telling me I ruined her life. She says she has to get a divorce now because her husband won't forgive her. Her kids are furious, and I forced her hand by being involved. She's calling me immature and selfish for not understanding what she was going through and says I basically wrecked her family.
Okay.
I never wanted to hurt anyone. I didn't even know the full story. I only knew what she told me. If I'd have known she was still actively living a married life, I would have never touched the situation. I feel awful for her kids and for being involved in something so messy, but I honestly feel like I was manipulated too. I've stopped talking to her for now, but I keep wondering, did I mess this all up? Did I push too hard without realising it? I never meant for anyone to get hurt. Am I the asshole?
No. Oh my God. That's gonna ruin that kid for the rest of his life now. He's never gonna trust anyone again. Wow. Of course she said they were separating as well.
It's like the go-to of every cheater. Oh, we're separated.
Yeah. Everyone says, oh, it's complicated. We're having a lot of trouble and we actually are separating. That's always the go-to. But he's so young, he won't realize that now yet, you know. It's so bad. The oldest kid is only like 1 year or two younger than him as well. That is so creepy in so many ways.
2 years older than one of her children.
Ugh. That is the creepiest thing ever. Never understood that. Why people...
But there's no update.
No.
But pretty much everyone in the comments are saying he's not the asshole. I'll go for the top comment. Not the asshole due to the fact that she's basically is trying to gaslight you. She knew what she was doing and now she got caught and has to deal with the consequences. But let this be a lesson. Don't get involved with married women. Ever.
Yeah. Or man, for that for that matter.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't get it.
Someone calling her a predator.
She is a predator. At that age, yeah. Later in life, there's a lot of people like in their 50s that will date someone in their 30s and you won't even like bat an eye at it, but he's still a teenager.
Yeah.
He's still a baby in a sense. She's a predator.
She's a predator. But no, he's not the asshole.
No.
But it's one of those things where everyone who's a cheater will literally say, "Oh, we're broken in the process of breaking up or the process of having a divorce."
Yeah.
You just can't take anyone at their word lately.
You never could, really. A lot of
No,
people.
but to this day and age, it's getting a lot
Yeah.
worse.
Yeah. Yeah, he's not the asshole. I feel sorry for him because that's gonna scar the rest of his dating life.
Yeah, I was going to remember that from day one.
Yeah.
But yeah, not the asshole.
No, not the asshole at all. Welcome back to Brain Gain, the segment where we crack open the human mind and find all the weird, wonderful acts that make life just a little bit smarter. I'm Jess.
And I'm Luke. And today we're diving into the art of memory mastery. Because, let's be honest, in a world full of passwords, PIN codes, and random childhood phone numbers, you still somehow remember a good memory is basically a superpower.
Exactly. And here's the thing. Your brain isn't a hard drive. It's more like a garden. You have to plant seeds, water them, and occasionally pull some weeds if you want those memories to actually stick. So today, we're giving you a crash course in memory gardening with some seriously mind-blowing techniques.
Let's start with one of the oldest and most powerful memory techniques in history. The method of Loki, or the memory palace. This one's ancient, like ancient Greek stand-up comic level old. Basic idea is that our brains are exceptionally good at remembering locations and visual scenes. So you mentally place the things you want to remember along a path or in a familiar place, like your apartment or a walk you really know really well.
Exactly. Think of it like this. Your brain is basically an interior decorator, but for memories. You can use this method to remember a grocery list, a speech, or even the order of a deck of cards if you're feeling particularly Sherlock Holmesy. The trick is to make this image vivid and absurd, because your brain loves weird stuff.
Right. Like if I'm trying to remember a list, bananas, cat food, toothpaste, I might imagine a giant banana lounging on my couch, a cat-sized can of cat food sitting at my kitchen counter in a little apron, and my toothpaste squeezed out all over my TV like some kind of minty crime scene.
Exactly. The stranger, the better. All right, moving on to another classic. Chunking. This is all about breaking big chunks of information into smaller bite-sized pieces. It's why phone numbers are split into groups. For example, 555-123-4567. Because your brain handles smaller clusters way better than long unbroken strings.
This one's a game changer. It's the reason you can remember your Netflix password but not your 12-digit Wi-Fi code. You're basically just reducing cognitive load, which is a fancy way of saying you're making it easier on your brain.
And this also works with concepts, like when you're trying to remember someone's life story at a party. Just chunk it into the basics. Job, hobby, weird pet, random fact. Suddenly, Karen isn't just another face in a crowd. She's Karen, the yoga teacher with a pet ferret who makes kombucha.
All right, what's the next one?
This one's a little more advanced. It's called the peg system. It's a trick for remembering lists in a specific order. You basically create a mental hook or peg for each number. So 1 is a bun, 2 is a shoe, 3 is a tree, 4 is a door, and so on. Then you mentally pair these pegs with the items you want to remember.
So if I need to buy bread, apples, and milk, I might imagine a bun squeezing an apple like a sandwich, a shoe filled with milk, gross but memorable, and a tree covered in apples.
Exactly. The weirder and more vivid, the better. It turns dry data into unforgettable mental images.
And that brings us to one of the most important memory hacks of all. Space repetition. This one's all about timing. Your brain likes to forget things unless you remind it at the right intervals. It's like trying to keep a campfire going. You have to add logs at the right time.
Exactly. If you really want something to stick, review it a few hours after learning, then a day later, then a week, and so on. Apps like Anki and Quizlet are built around this idea, and it's the reason flashcards are so effective.
All right, let's do a quick recap. We've got the method of Loki for vivid spatial memory, chunking for breaking bigger things into smaller, brain-friendly pieces, the PEG system for ordered lists, and space repetition to lock it all in.
That's a wrap for today on Brain Gain, Memory Mastery Edition. Go out there, plant some memory seeds, and remember, your brain is a weird, wonderful thing. Treat it well, and it will serve you a lifetime. Welcome back to the Hope Protocol.
If you've had enough of the world's constant circus of chaos, you've come to the right place. Let's dive into the top positive, weird, and just plain wonderful news from around the globe this week.
All right, first up, Indonesia. Turns out they just stopped the first ever global flourishing study. That's right, Indonesia is now officially the world's happiest place to live, which honestly feels like the plot twist no one saw coming. I mean, Bali alone probably accounts for half of those happy vibes.
Can you imagine just waking up surrounded by rice terraces, sipping coconut water, and then casually topping a global happiness ranking? Meanwhile, the rest of us are just trying not to drop our phones on our faces while scrolling in bed.
Seriously. And speaking of sustainable living, Spain is now using electric cars to power homes during peak hours. They're basically turning Teslas into portable batteries. I'm just picturing a family arguing over who gets to use the car to microwave their popcorn.
Or the awkward moment when you're halfway to work and your house calls like, "Hey, can you come back? We're at 5%.
All right, moving on to wildlife. Mexico just rediscovered a bird species thought to be extinct. It's like, hey guys, I was just chilling. What was all the fuss about?
I love this. Somewhere in a Mexican jungle, this bird is just side-eyeing everyone like, you wrote me off too soon.
And while we're talking nature, European beaches have seen a 30 to 45% reduction in litter since 2015. Finally, our beach selfish might just come without the backdrop of plastic bottles.
That's the energy we need. Less trash, more tan lines.
Now, this one's wild. Germany just pulled off a quantum communication breakthrough using regular telecom lines. We're talking super secure, super futuristic, probably one step away from the sci-fi world where your fridge can hack your Wi-Fi.
Honestly, at this point, I'd trust my toaster with my Wi-Fi password more than my roommate.
And to wrap things up, scientists have made a breakthrough in understanding habit formation, which means we're one step closer to actually sticking to those New Year's resolutions.
I'm here for it, 2025, the year I finally stop hitting snooze.
All right, that's a wrap on this week's dose of global good vibes. Keep your heads up, your hopes high, and remember, the world might be messy, but still full of beautiful, surprising moments.
Stay hopeful, stay weird. Not as weird as what we are now getting into. Our boy Charles takes the first place on any weirdness contest. I'm ready, Jess. Tinfoil hat strapped on. Hit me with this week's Conspiracy Corner.
Right. Let's first make it clear that this cult was not a conspiracy, although some connections are alleged. Before we get to the LSD-fueled desert dance parties and cryptic Beatle lyrics, Let's talk about how Charles Bloody Manson became the perfect cult leader. Because make no mistake, this wasn't just some guitar strumming hippie who tripped and fell into infamy. This guy was crafted, a proper DIY psychopath kid from birth.
Great. So we're blaming the parents again, are we?
Oh, no, no. These ones aren't it. Charles Miles Manson was born in 1934 in Cincinnati to a 16-year-old girl named Kathleen Maddox, who, I kid you not, once traded him for a jug of beer.
That's how you know it's America. Congratulations, it's a boy. Pint or pitcher?
He was retrieved, thankfully, by an uncle, but the tone was set. Unstable home, zero structure, and a mother who bounced between crime and alcohol like it was her cardio. By the age of 9, Charlie was already stealing. By 13, he was in juvenile detention, and from then on, it was a tour of America's finest youth facility.
So kind of like a criminal gap here, but with more fistfights and less enlightenment.
Exactly. And here's the kicker. These places were brutal. Violence, sexual abuse, total psychological welfare. He learned to survive by charming the guards and manipulating the other inmates. It wasn't reform, it was training camp.
Prison Hogwarts. Instead of magic, you learn how to pimp and gaslight.
Speaking of which, in his teenage years and 20s, Manson bounced from pimping underage girls to stealing cars to check fraud and to posing as an armed officer. He'd been arrested over a dozen times before the age of 30. But what's really weird is how he used his time inside. He studied Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People like it was the gospel, practiced self-hypnosis, picked up Scientology buzzwords. The man was a sponge for control techniques.
Dale Carnegie, the gateway drug to mind control.
Seriously, he learned that if you stroke someone's ego, lock in eye contact, mirror their speech, you could make people feel seen, and then twist them into pretzels.
And no one thought, hey, maybe don't teach narcissistic career criminals advanced people skills?
Apparently not. By 1967, Manson had spent over half his life locked up, and the system spat him out into San Francisco, the absolute center of the counterculture hurricane.
So he goes from prison straight into the summer of love. That's like dropping a shark into a nudist pool party.
Exactly. He saw all these wide-eyed runaways, kids tripping on acid, looking for spiritual guidance, and he thought, oh, these are my people. The key points. Manson's instability starts at birth. Juvenile Holmes sharpened his charming psychopath toolkit. He never stopped hustling from conman to pimp to guru. His prison education gave him the blueprint for cult control. The timing of his 1967 release? Suspiciously perfect.
So basically, the government spent 20 years marinating him in dysfunction, then tossed him straight into the perfect petri dish for chaos.
Exactly. It's like if Frankenstein got out of the lab and immediately got a record deal in High Ashbury.
Honestly, I'd gaslight that Netflix series.
You joke, but we're just getting started, because next up, Manson meets his disciples and somehow convinces a bunch of peace-loving flower children that the world is ending in a race war orchestrated by the Beatles.
And here I thought my band's lyrics were a bit vague.
Before he was a barefoot, bug-eyed puppet master of a homicidal hippie cult, Charles Manson was, well, still pretty awful, just shorter. To understand how he got there, we need to rewind to the origin story of this human garbage fire.
Proper deep dive into the Manson stew. Bet it smells like patchouli and daddy issues.
His biological dad did a classic Houdini, disappearing before Charlie could even grow a beard made of hatred. Kathleen, his mum, was a rebellious teen who allegedly once sold her baby for a pitcher of beer. Yeah, pint-sized Charlie was already changing hands like a pop coaster.
Good Lord. Kid didn't even get a baby rattle, just emotional trauma and a sudden neglect.
And it didn't get better. He bounced from relatives to foster care to reform schools, always just a bit too clever and way too feral. At age 13, he pulled his first known heist. By his 20s, he'd rack up charges for burglary, pimping, auto theft, and forgery.
So, the Pokemon evolution of a con man. Mason used pickpocket. It was super manipulative.
He also dipped into Scientology, Eastern mysticism, and even the writings of Ouspensky. Basically, he took whatever sounded smart, mixed it with LSD, and created a religion that only made sense if your frontal lobe had left the building.
Right, so it's like reading Wikipedia high and thinking you're the Messiah.
Once out of prison in 1967, Charlie landed in San Francisco just as the summer of love was hitting critical mass. He saw a city full of runaway teens, dropouts, and acid-fried dreamers and thought, perfect, with a guitar, a PD stare, and a messiah complex, he started collecting followers like Pokemons, but more gullible.
Gotta gaslight them all.
Exactly. And he had the formula. Step 1, love bomb. Tell them they're beautiful, unique, and cosmic. Step 2, break them down. Force them to confess traumas, then weaponize those secrets. Step 3, isolate. No clocks, no shoes, no outside contract. Just Charlie, nature, and the occasional trip to steal groceries.
No shoes, that's the final straw. Called me once, shame on you. Called me barefoot, I'm calling my mum.
Now, here's where it gets weird. He preached a mix of no right or wrong, only what is. Reality is an illusion. Death is a doorway. Black people will rise up in a race war, but need him, a white man, to lead them afterwards. Yes, it was equal parts nihilism, narcissism, and nonsense.
So basically, Nyash had a breakdown at Burning Man.
Let's meet a few of the family all-stars. Susan Atkins, former dancer turned into devout Charlie mouthpiece, called him Jesus and would later say, "We have done anything for him, including murder." Yikes. Patricia Cranwinkle, shy, devout Catholic girl, Manson told her she was beautiful and suddenly she was carving words into people with a fork. Tex Watson, former high school football star from Texas, became Charlie's right-hand butcher, like if Friday Night Lights were rewritten by Stephen King. Leslie Van Houten, beauty queen turned acid-tripping foot soldier. Her mom forced her into an abortion at 17, and Charlie swooped in like a demonic shoulder to cry.
This is like the Breakfast Club if the breakfast was laced with mescaline and the club was in hell.
And that wasn't all flower crowns and group sex. Before the infamous murders, the family beat a dealer with lead pipes, threatened defectors with knives, may have been involved in child abuse, stolen cars, and mysterious deaths swept under the rug. They were basically a commune-shaped powder keg.
And Charlie, the guy with the match, the lighter fluid, and the mixtape of Beatles B-side.
Charlie always said, "You're free," but in reality, he chose what they wore, who they slept with, when they ate, what drugs they took, what names they wore. He renamed them like Pokemon Evolution again. It was psychological captivity disguised as freedom, an invisible leash you thanked him for putting on you.
So freedom, but make it fascist.
Want your own doomsday sex cult? Just follow Charlie's 5 simple steps. 1. Recruit emotionally vulnerable teens. 2. Add LSD and isolation. 3. Sprinkle in apocalyptic Beatles lyrics. 4. Remove clocks, mirrors, and boundaries. 5. Declare yourself God or Jesus or both or either. It's fluid.
Warning, side effects may include murder, mass delusion, and sudden bursts of insane banjo music.
So by 1969, Manson had it all: a loyal group, a war prophecy, and a glowing urge to light the world on fire. What came next was the horrific climax: blood on walls, lives lost, and a media frenzy that would immortalize the family forever. Alright, look, things are about to go full Mad Hatter. Charlie Manson's prophecy was reaching boiling point. The man was hearing coded messages in Beatles songs. Yes, the mop-haired Liverpoolians apparently foretold the race war apocalypse from a recording studio in Abbey Road.
I always said Yellow Submarine was menacing.
Manson interpreted Beatles' White Album like a man decoding the Dead Sea Scrolls while on LSD and rage. To him, Helter Skelter equals the coming race war. Blackbird equaled the black people rising up. Piggies is the white establishment victims. Revolution 9 was Chaos Rebirth New World.
That's not symbolism, that's schizophrenia with a soundtrack.
Exactly. Charlie believed the black population would rise, wipe out the whites, but then, get this, they'd be too childlike to run things. So they'd need him to step in as their messiah, like some LSD Jesus Batman.
What a brilliant strategy. Provoke a race war so horrific that you can ride the bloody tide to power like some cracked out Aquaman.
August 8, 1969, Charlie tells Tex Watson to go out and do something witchy. Translation: kick off Helter Skelter. That night, Tex, Susan Atkins, Patricia Krenwinkel, and Lisa Kasabian head into 10,050 Cielo Drive, home of director Roman Polanski and his pregnant wife Sharon Tate.
Right, and Polanski wasn't even home because fate likes to add a dollop of twisted luck.
Sharon Tate, 8 months pregnant, Abigail Folger, heiress to the coffee fortune, J.C. Bring, celebrity hairstylist, Wojciech Frykowski, a friend of Polanski's, Stephen Parent, a 18-year-old visitor. They were brutally murdered. Tate begged for her unborn baby's life. They carved pig into the wall in blood. It was a ritualistic horror show.
Even for a podcast like ours, this part's just horrifying. No jokes here.
Yeah, some moments even Mindzilla puts the tinfoil down. Night 2, August 9. Manson himself joins but doesn't kill, just directs. They target Leno and Rosemary LaBianca, wealthy, random, symbolic. He binds them, whispers sweet cold nothings, then leaves his minions to do the dirty work. They stab Leno over a dozen times, carving war into his flesh. Rosemary's neck is wrapped in a lamp cord, fork stuck in Leno's stomach. Helter Skelter. It was misspelled, but is smeared in blood on the fridge.
Look, if you're going to launch an apocalyptic race war, at least get the spelling right. It's Helter. Come on.
That's the part that offended you? Here's where the things get twisty. The official motive was Helter Skelter. But was it? Let's lay out alternative theories like a conspiracy buffet. 1. Drug deal gone wrong. Frykowski and Folger were allegedly tied to the drug scene. Manson may have been sending a message. 2. Revenge. Cielo Drive used to be rented by producer Terry Melcher, who snubbed Manson's music career. Manson knew Melcher had moved, still picked that house. Or 3. Total control. Charlie wanted his followers so far gone they'd kill on command. No hesitations, no limits.
So basically, the murders were either a manifesto or a really psychotic team building exercise.
Like the world's worst trust fall. And the scariest part, they weren't hypnotized. They weren't brainwashed by machines. They were regular young people turned completely upside down by a manipulative Tex Watson said Manson had hollowed him out. Susan Atkins giggled about all the murders in jail. Patricia said she finally felt loved.
And all it cost was their sanity, freedom, and any chance of a normal dinner conversation ever again.
Now, we're not diving deep into the MK Ultra today, but let's just say the Manson family checks some very suspicious boxes, like heavy LSD use, personality fragmentation, sleep deprivation, isolation and indoctrination, puppeteer-like control. It's like someone took the CIA's mind control playbook and said, let's go rogue in the desert.
Save that for the full MK Ultra episode. I want government documents, secret labs, and at least 3 assassins with weird tattoos.
They were finally arrested in late 1969. Not for the murders, but for auto theft. That's right. They were caught because they were really bad at stealing cars, not because of the murder spree. The dots only connected later, after Susan Atkins started bragging in jail.
So the most notorious cult in American history was undone by joyriding. Love that for them.
So, was Helter Skelter a race war prophecy, a music-fueled delusion, or a cover story for power, vengeance, and chaos?
Or all of the above with a splash of bad acid and a Beatles LP playing backwards.
Whatever it was, the murders shocked the world and slammed the door on the idealistic 60s like a guillotine. But we're not done yet.
Oh no, next up, the courtroom circus, the shaved heads, the swastikas, and the trial that made history even weirder.
Coming in hot, Manson's in court. And it's not justice, it's performers' art. Imagine if a murder trial and a Tim Burton movie just had a baby, and then that baby dropped acid and tried to represent itself in court.
Sounds like every British reality show in 2006.
Let's set the scene. It's 1970. The Manson family, Charlie, Susan, Patricia, and Leslie Van Houten, are finally being tried for the Tate LaBianca murders. Tex Watson was tried separately. The trial lasted 9.5 months, longest in U.S. history at the time. There were 27 volumes of testimony, 100+ witnesses, and one deranged man carving an X into his forehead because he thought the court excommunicated him.
I mean, I've had bad hair days, but self-mutilation for attention? Bit much.
He later changed the X into a swastika, because of course he did. Manson tried to represent himself in court. Big mistake. Huge. The judge shut that down quickly after Manson turned the courtroom into an improv theater.
What was his legal strategy? I'm not guilty by reason of groovy vibes?
Basically, at one point he gave a speech that included, "You made your children what they are. These children that come at you with knives, they are your children. You taught them. I didn't teach them." So shifting the blame from himself to literally society.
Mate was trying to gaslight the entire nation.
Meanwhile, his female followers were camped outside the courthouse every day like it was Glastonbury. Shaved heads, carved X's, singing songs, smiling, staring down the press. They were fully under his spell.
It's like the Spice Girls, but post-apocalyptic and everyone's possessed.
One even tried to set herself on fire to protest the trial. Another tried to assassinate the president 4 years later. These were not fair weather fans. These were brainwashed lifers. Atkins, Van Houten, and Krenwinkel all confessed in graphic, bloody detail. They didn't just admit guilt, they relinquished it. They relished it. Atkins said killing was fun. Van Houten admitted stabbing Rosemary LaBianca as she was already dead. Krenwinkel said she felt nothing, no regrets.
These weren't courtroom confessions. They were audition tapes for Netflix docudrama.
And Manson? He kept whispering to them during the trial like a demonic stage director. Every time the jury looked at him, he'd be smiling. Charlie's greatest hits from the courtroom. He tried to attack the judge with a pencil, shouting, "Someone should cut your head off," claimed, "I have X'd myself from your world," gave long monologues full of metaphors like trees, snakes, mirrors, and darkness.
Is this a trial or a poetry slam at the Mad Hatter's tea house?
Even his lawyer said, "You cannot establish that Manson is insane. He is crazy, but that's a different thing." On January 25th, 1971, all four were convicted of first-degree murder. All were sentenced to death.
Spoiler alert, none of them were executed.
Right? California scrapped the death penalty in 1972, so all sentences were commuted to life in prison. Manson died in 2017. Most of the others are still alive. Some still in prison, some up for parole, all with tattoos of Charlie burned into their souls. This wasn't just a trial, it was a cultural earthquake. The hippie dream died on the stand. Free love and flower gave way to cults, paranoia, and the slow bleed into the 1970s darker vibes.
From Woodstock to blood-soaked doorways in 3 years. Cheers, Charles.
Remember, the whole trial might have only happened because Susan Atkins bragged in jail. If she'd kept her mouth shut, this case might have gone cold.
So loose lips don't sink ships, they sink cults.
Next up, we have the aftermath. Where did the family go? How did Charles become a prison pop culture icon? What happened to the survivors? And why does he still haunt conspiracy theorists' dreams?
And did he actually work for the CIA? Or was he just the most chaotic man to ever buy a guitar?
All right, dear listener, you've heard the murders, the madness, the trial, and now we enter the radioactive crater left behind, because the Manson saga didn't end when Charlie got locked up. It mutated. It spread like a bad trip through America's subconscious, and some say the trip never stopped.
Oh, that's reassuring. I was worried things were getting too normal.
Let's talk about post-cold careers. Spoilers. None of them became yoga instructors. Tex Watson was a born-again Christian in prison. Runs a ministry, married, had kids from prison, and God apparently works in mysterious ways and slightly inappropriate ways. Susan Atkins found religion too. Died in 2009. Applied for parole 18 times, denied every time. Patricia Krenwinkel, still in prison, longest incarcerated woman in California. Leslie Van Houten, paroled in 2023 after decades of debate and multiple rejections. Governor tried to block it, but it didn't stick. Ned Squeaky Fromme tried to assassinate President Gerald Ford in 1975. She missed. Did 34 years, now lives quietly in upstate New York.
Quietly, for her, probably means whispering to pine cones and thinking the moon is watching.
Wouldn't be wrong. Here's where we go full Mindzilla. Buckle up, conspiracy gremlins. Some believe Charles Manson and the family were just some acid-soaked nutters in a desert. No, no. They were created, engineered, a walking, talking MK Ultra experiment, a CIA Black Op field test.
Because who wouldn't want to fund a shoeless megalomaniac and his gang of murderous hippies?
Let's recap the relevant sauce without diving too deep. We'll save that rabbit hole for its own Mindzilla bender. MK Ultra, CIA mind control program. Real, verified, involved LSD, hypnosis, sleep deprivation, and other party tricks on unwilling civilians. Operation Chaos, CIA project that surveilled domestic dissidents, especially the counterculture. Again, very real, despite the fact that it sounds like a James Bond villain startup. Now, let's play Connect the Dots. From 1955 to 1967, Manson was in and out of prison constantly. Each time he got released early, no matter what crime. Auto theft, pimping, check fraud, parole violation. The dude was like a boomerang with a rap sheet. At one point, his own parole officer recommended he not to be released, but he was released anyway.
So the man was too dangerous for prison, but not dangerous enough for society?
Unless someone wanted him in society. After getting out in 1967, Manson spent time in San Francisco's Haight-Ashbury, the epicenter of the hippie movement. He hung out at the Haight-Ashbury Free Medical Clinic, which, wait for it, was associated with government-funded psychiatry researchers. One of them was Dr. Louis Jolyon West, a known MK Ultra researcher. He once killed an elephant with LSD. Allegedly, it was in the name of science. Totally normal.
Right, because nothing screams mental health support like accidentally psychedelic elephant homicide.
Manson was uncannily good at controlling people, especially when LSD was involved. He dosed the family, but not himself, and walked them through hours-long monologues. Classic MK Ultra tactic. Observe how drugs alter perception and control. Manson used music, repetition, isolation, and sexual manipulation. He broke them down mentally, emotionally, and physically, then rebuilt them in his image.
So, cult leader, yes, but also a very sweaty data point in a secret government spreadsheet.
Here's the mind melter. Some theorists argue that Manson was a part of a broader operation to discredit the counterculture. Way better way to destroy the peace and love movement than with a drug-crazed cult, a Beatles song turned dead prophecy, and a hippie Jesus who turned out to be a knife-wielding maniac. The media lapped it up. The dirty hippie archetype was cemented. The political left was demonized. Free love suddenly had a body count.
So the flower children became the fall guys.
Manson became a legend, notorious, infamous, even fashionable in that awful way pop culture glamorized villains. Featured on t-shirts, posters, rap lyrics, inspired films, songs, books. Even Marilyn Manson took his name from him. And let's not forget Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which reimagines the murders as not happening.
What's next? A Manson Funko Pop?
Don't tempt fate. The Manson story isn't just about murders. It's about control, media manipulation, government secrets, the end of an era, and maybe, just maybe, the beginning of something darker, still hiding under the American dream.
Cautionary tale wrapped in LSD with a beard.
So was Charles Manson a madman, a puppet, or both? Was the family a cult or an experiment gone wrong?
Right, depending on who was running it.
Next time on Mindzilla, what was MK Ultra really doing? Why did the CIA try to wipe the memories of entire towns? And can you actually implant a false personality with a tape recorder and a lot of mescaline?
The truth isn't out there, but it might be right here next week.
And that's it for this episode of Mindzilla. If your brain feels slightly fried, you are welcome.
Follow us on Spotify, subscribe on YouTube, we're audio only, but still ridiculously good looking. Support the madness on Patreon from just £3 a month for bonus episodes every week and secret perks. Go and have a look, you won't be disappointed.
Or throw us a coffee on PayPal. Luke survives on caffeine and existential dread. You can find all links in the description.
Please help.
We'll be back next Monday with more internet weirdness and cosmic chaos.
And remember, the truth isn't out there, but it might just be right here next week. Bye.